Well, hello again. I've been looking around on the internet at space-related stuff, and I thought I'd just pass on a few thoughts and maybe get your opinions below. Now, this is Oumuamua. It's our first interstellar visitor, apparently, first detected interstellar visitor. This is an artist's rendition of Omuma because there is no visible, no photographic image available of it, but they could tell that it was long and thin. And it also had a tumbling motion, so it wasn't rotating around an axis as though it was providing artificial gravity for a crew. It was tumbling sort of three-dimensionally around its axis in all directions. So Avi Loeb, who I think is an astrophysicist in America, said that it could be, an alien probe. Every radio telescope on the face of the Earth was trained on it. They detected no emissions. He then said it could be a dead alien probe. Okay, well, that might explain the lack of emissions. He also said it could be a light sail, an alien probe propelled by light. Now, because it was long and thin, it was much longer than it was wide or thick. I thought, well, I tried to imagine that as being a light sail and having a tumbling motion, and I can't really get my head around that. Can you imagine a lightweight kite? Very lightweight kite, say a square kite, lightweight square kite, tumbling towards a fan, because the solar wind would be quite strong as Oumuamua approached the sun. If it was a light sail, I think it would have stopped tumbling. If you actually tried an experiment and got a square lightweight kite and then put it in front of a fan, turn the fan on, and then tried to make the lightweight kite tumble in the face of the oncoming wind, I think it'd be very difficult to do. So personally, I don't think it was a light sail for that reason. I think it was a rock. It's as simple as that. No emissions from it. The tumbling motion. I can't imagine a spacecraft using that sort of. I can't imagine a spacecraft tumbling through space. I mean, could you imagine the Starship Enterprise tumbling through space? Whenever you see these sort of science fiction spacecraft, the Millennium Falcon and all these sort of things, they fly like aircraft do. They bank when they turn. They bank when they turn, and they tend to fly in straight lines. They don't tumble through space. Could you imagine the Millennium Falcon tumbling around its axis in all directions as it goes along as it travels through space? Or the Enterprise doing that? I'm using science fiction examples just because I think it sort of makes the point clearer. I am fully aware, of course, that the Millennium Falcon and the Starship Enterprise are fictional vehicles, fictional spacecraft. So there you go. I think so. That's my thoughts on Oumuamua. I might even try an experiment. I'm really surprised Avi Loeb hasn't tried something like that. Get a lightweight kite and a square kite. Put it in front of a fan and try to get the lightweight kite to tumble. I really don't think that you could successfully do that, personally. Okay, so what else about Oumuamua? Actually, nothing. I think I've done they've looked at it. There's no emissions from it. I think they're still tracking it just to see if there are any emissions from it. To see if it sort of livens up when it's a fair distance from Earth, something like that. But so far it just appears to be a rock. And I think they said it was sort of slightly reddish in colour, which sort of suggested iron. There might be a lot of iron in it, which again is suggestive of a rock. I really can't imagine an alien spacecraft having any iron in it, any iron at all, to be perfectly honest. I think an interstellar spacecraft would be made of some really exotic synthetic low mass materials that we can't even imagine at the moment. So you wouldn't get any metal in an alien spacecraft, and you wouldn't get any, certainly wouldn't get any iron. All right, well, that's Oumuamua. Let's just look at the little spindly grey aliens with a logical eye. Right, here we are. Here's our typical spindly grey aliens that apparently are coming here and showing a great deal of interest in us. Now, I'll tell you why I don't think this is happening, why I don't think this is real at all. And that is that for a creature to develop that sort of physiology, they would have to have evolved on a planet with very low gravity. They don't need any power to keep them off the surface. Now, I think that as soon as they got here and stepped out of their flying saucer, they would collapse to the ground. It'd probably break their legs. The gravity of the Earth, it would just crush them. It would just break their legs. They would fall to the ground. They certainly wouldn't be interested in this planet because they wouldn't be able to use it. It will be like us going to a planet that had, you know, goodness knows how many more times gravity than the Earth. We wouldn't be able to stand up, we wouldn't be able to comfortably move around. We may even sustain physiological damage. So this is pure science fiction. Little grey aliens, pure science fiction. They just wouldn't, they wouldn't be interested. If they existed at all, they wouldn't be interested in the planet because they wouldn't be able to use it. And coming here and you know, going into people's bedrooms and all this sort of stuff. They wouldn't even be able to climb the stairs. You know, it's completely and utterly ridiculous. It's science fiction, and it's science fiction at its worst. You know, there's no actual tangible evidence for any of this stuff. You know, it's all science fiction stories. If you just consider, you know, these people that supposedly interact with aliens all the time, the best they can do is produce a crayon drawing. They can't produce any pictures. Billy Meyer apparently gets visited by aliens all the time, yet he hasn't managed to introduce a reporter to any aliens. He hasn't arranged for any reporters to be at his house, you know, when he knows that the aliens come to visit him for tea every Wednesday afternoon, so that the reporters can see the ships for themselves and photograph them and talk to the aliens and photograph the aliens. It doesn't happen because it's all science fiction, it's nonsense. Just casting a logical eye over it, you know, with a little bit of critical thinking, and you can quickly sort the wheat from the chaff. Not that I've seen any wheat, to be perfectly honest. So you can put a line through the little grey alien visitors. Not happening. Ridiculous. Nonsense. Okay, what's next? Completely unrealistic alien visitation movie scenarios. Now, this is a scene from the movie Arrival, and you can see the two aliens there on the left and right, and they're trying to communicate with the Earthling in the middle using their language. They're in a tank of water or a tank of gas or something in their spacecraft. Now, why is this completely unrealistic? Well, no alien species is going to come here in a number of spacecraft, which is how this is depicted in the movie, then tactically position the spacecraft around the world in different countries if they couldn't actually communicate with the species on the planet that they were visiting. This would be extremely dangerous because we wouldn't know if they were friend or foe. And I very much doubt they would take a lot of time trying to find out. So no alien species is going to come here and try and contact us, or make physical contact with us, or even contact with us by, you know, some sort of radio communication system, whatever, if they could not communicate in a terrestrial language, whether it's English or Chinese or Russian or whatever. They certainly would not come here if they could not communicate. This is absolutely ludicrous. The last thing you would do is tactically position a fleet of spacecraft over an alien planet, and then and then try and figure out a way of communicating with the aliens you're visiting. You're likely to get attacked, and, you know, who knows what would happen. It's a stupid idea, absolutely ludicrous, ridiculous. If Even if an alien species did consider doing this, they wouldn't do it with a fleet of spacecraft, because that sticks red flags up all over the place. The planet they were visiting is going to think they were being invaded. So if they were going to do this, they would do it with one spacecraft. And as I said, I really don't think, I think if aliens are smart enough to get here, they're going to be smart enough to know it'd be a really bad idea to come and land or hover just above the ground for days or weeks on end without being able to communicate with the species on the planet they were visiting. This is absolutely ludicrous. I don't know who dreamed this up, but a little bit of critical thinking tells us that this would never happen. It's absolute nonsense. So that's just another completely unrealistic alien visitation movie scenario. Okay, what's next? Okay, and finally, alien abduction. Alien abduction. The aliens abduct people, and they sort of tell them that you know, they really should be more careful about how they treat the planet. Now, this is a lot like, could you imagine, say, Donald Trump, for example, trying to convince people that he should be the president of the United States? Is he going to abduct individual Americans and tie them up in a chair in his garage and then tell them what he has in mind and tell them his philosophy and his policies? Or is he going to use, you know, Facebook, Twitter, every social media outlet he can, every television station he can, to reach as many people as possible with his message? So that tells us that this alien abduction stuff and all this, you know, they go and visit a school and tell the kids, you know, they give them this eco message to look after the planet. You know, the aliens are worried about how we're treating the planet. It's complete and utter nonsense. The aliens aren't going to abduct individuals. If they have a message to get across, they would land on the White House lawn and be on every television channel and every social media outlet on the face of the earth to reach as many people as possible. And I think what's going on in Ukraine at the moment, if the aliens were really interested in helping us and saving the planet, they'd be landing in Ukraine about now and saying, or landing in Red Square and saying, you know, this is really not on what you're doing here. So certainly if you're considering using nuclear weapons, you know, Tusk. And we're not seeing that, are we? So this whole alien abduction thing is completely and utterly ludicrous. And again, the people that tell you that they're being abducted on a regular basis can never provide any tangible evidence. You know, they can only ever provide crayon drawings. They could never show you a photograph of their abductors or their spacecraft. No one else sees them being abducted. No one else, you know, would confirm that the spacecraft has landed in somebody's back garden and the aliens are sitting around having tea and cucumber sandwiches. You know, there is zero evidence for any of this happening. And interestingly as well, you know, the flying saucer shape lingers on after Kenneth Arnold said that he saw these crescent-shaped craft, actually, they weren't saucer-shaped, skimming through the sky like saucers would skim across a pond. And the press picked up on the name Flying Saucer because it sounded good. And then, of course, everybody that imagines all this sort of stuff and tells these fanciful yarns talks about flying saucers. So yeah, it's complete and utter nonsense. All this alien abduction stuff is just drivel, makes no sense at all. Apply the slightest bit of critical thinking to it, and yeah, it just dissolves. It's just complete and utter rubbish. All right, well, I had a spare half an hour, so I thought I'd do a quick video just to show I'm still alive and just put a few thoughts out there, having seen some of this stuff on the internet. So hope you found it interesting, and maybe catch you again. Thanks for watching.